There's an energizing feeling. There's an aliveness. And at the beginning of that surge, we can often get addicted to being stuck in that place because of this kind of good feeling that it can bring. But when we've been in long-standing or chronic states of stress over time, that excessive raise in cortisol production can begin to be disrupting and harmful for us. Welcome to the Embodied Woman podcast with me, Rebecca Wilson. An embodied experiential space for you to drop deep into the wealth of wisdom within your being and activate a fuller, richer you. I am a feminine awakener, thought leader, embodied business doula, sacred business midwife, healer, and all-round medicine woman. I am here to guide women deeper into their essence and power, to activate their life force, awaken pleasure, and support them to live an embodied life. I will help you birth your visions, dreams, creations, desires, and sacred business into the world from an easeful, embodied, and rooted place within. My work supports women to become more available for life, love, relationship, connection, creation, pleasure, and wealth. I will activate you into self-leadership and self-mastery to truly live an embodied and awakened life. Welcome on the journey, my love. Hello, love. Welcome to the Embodied Woman podcast. In today's episode, we are diving deep into cortisol. It's a subject that is often spoken about within my groups and my individual mentorship spaces. And I know that it's a real kind of hot topic out there in Instagram and this world of social media. And so I felt called to create this episode with that in mind, to draw upon my own experience, the experience of the women that are in my world and journeying with me at this time. So first of all, I want to just frame that we must understand the complexities that the modern world and modern life has and does impress upon us. And that in some way, stress has become an inevitable part of our daily lives and experiences. Now, there is a difference between the moderate daily impact of stress and a life-changing, traumatic experience and the stress levels that we endure there. But particularly when we're thinking of our daily lives, we can kind of understand how the modern world has become more and more of a stressful environment for us to be in, whether that be the speed of life, the constant exposure to the internet, to working hours that extend beyond what used to be maybe a 9 to 5, just the fullness of modern day life in comparison to what it might have been only a few generations ago. Cortisol, which is often referred to as the stress hormone, plays a vital role in our body's response to stress. So when we're in these stressful experiences, whether they be the day-to-day stresses of the work commute, life at work, relationships in work, family life, home life, financial stress, health stress, or just a general busyness of life, a sense of overwhelm that is happening to many people that I have conversations with, we are in this stress response to these external experiences. And our body produces cortisol, known as the stress hormone. And it has a vital role to play because the body produces this for us to be able to manage the stressor of the experience that we're having. But what it's not designed to do is to be there long standing and consistently throughout each moment of our days. Cortisol is there and provides a temporary boost of energy and focus in our bodies. for us to navigate the challenge that we may be facing. But we then want to be able to downregulate from that and enter a different state in our body and our nervous system to step out of that loop or that energy of stress and how it may be impacting us emotionally, energetically, and physiologically too. When we find ourselves in prolonged states of elevation in cortisol, it can have detrimental effects on our mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, physiological well-being. Initially, the surge of cortisol in the response to the stress that we are enduring can feel energizing. It can feel like a sense of aliveness in the body. Sometimes we can feel very full and alert as these hormones become, very much accessible and they are coursing through our body, and our nervous system responds to that in a way where the initial stages of cortisol actually feel pretty good, in the system. There's this sense of energetic aliveness that can rush through our bodies. And that is what cortisol's job is. Its primary job is to heighten alertness in our body, increase our heart rate, and begin to mobilize energy reserves, which are all necessary and needed responses to support us and our body to prepare in the face of the perceived threat or danger that we are having in that moment within the life experience we're in. We are becoming equipped to be able to prepare for threat and danger and to deal with it accordingly. The biological response of this is often known as the fight and flight reaction, and it's an essential mechanism and cascade of hormones that get released in our body that human survival has been based on throughout all of evolution. However, when we get stuck in that place in our body, we get stuck in that cascade of stress hormones, we enter a stage of chronic stress where we are in consistently elevated levels of cortisol. It can lead us down a path to many negative consequences and impact us in many different ways. When we have been enduring stress for long periods of time and we haven't had any space of respite from that, our body goes into altered physiological responses, and we find it more challenging to step out of those loops of stress. As I said, the body is releasing cortisol constantly. We are in that cocktail of stress hormones, and it can actually become quite an addictive place to be, often unconsciously and not willingly or wanting to be. We can find ourselves addicted to that cocktail of stress hormones because, like I said, initially they feel really good in the system. There's an energizing feeling. There's an aliveness. The whole body kind of comes online. Energy courses through. Blood is flowing more in increased volumes. And at the beginning of that surge, it often feels great. And we can often get addicted to being stuck in that place because of this kind of good feeling that it can bring. But when we've been in long-standing or chronic states of stress, over time, that excessive raise in cortisol production can begin to be disrupting and harmful for us. It can disrupt our sleep patterns. It weakens the immune system. It inhibits nutrient absorption as our body is prioritizing the fight and flight and survival response over responses such as rest, digestion, absorption of nutrients, and elimination of food. So we can often see here challenges with digestion manifesting maybe as like stomach pains, aches, inability to process certain foods, or what is known as that umbrella term of IBS. Excessive cortisol production over long periods of time can also lead us down a path of dysregulations in our sex hormones. It can impair cognitive function. It can also impair our whole hormonal cascade that is such a fine, tuned and really delicate environment, particularly for women. It becomes a massive disruptor of our menstrual cycle and that beautiful kind of wave-like motion that our hormones are meant to take in their natural state and form at each point in our cycle. Excessive cortisol can also contribute to things like unexplained weight gain, particularly around the abdomen, which can increase the risk of cardiovascular health issues, can lead to diabetes and other known chronic health conditions. Cortisol can also impact our mood, energy, and emotions. Often we can feel a sense of wired and tired, maybe experiencing high states of anxiety and low states of depression or low mood. We can have trouble waking up and getting up out of bed in the morning, maybe a feeling of heaviness or depression or kind of morning fog can take over us. We might feel excessively wired at the evening time. Our circadian rhythm can become out of balance as our hormones are out of balance and our body isn't sure, what time of day it is, what hormones it should be setting off at what time in accordance to our natural rhythm and cycle. So within this, we recognize that cortisol is great and it works until it isn't great and it doesn't work. It has a focus. It has a job, and that job is meant to be short and fleeting to help us get out of a state of threat or danger, to help us survive some kind of threatening experience outside of ourselves. And then we are designed to come back into rest, regulation, and for that cortisol to calm in the system. That experience of short-term stresses induce that feeling of enhanced motivation and focus, because just like we would be if we were in the wild and being chased by an animal, we would need that motivation and focus to run, to fight, to flee, or to hide. But when we enter the state of chronic stress, long-term stress, or being in that stress response over a long period of time, it leads us onto that pathway of anxiety, irritability, depression, mood swings, hormonal imbalances, and sleep disruptions. A very prolonged exposure to elevated cortisol levels can actually alter our brain structure and function, which makes the individuals that are in that experience more susceptible to mental health challenges, nervous system dysfunction and dysregulation, extreme anxiety, depression, fatigue, feelings of imbalance, a challenge in being able to regulate their nervous system and emotions and find their way back to a more balanced and resourced place within, as the body has become stuck in this expression and pattern of extreme high alert. Everything to a system that is stuck in that place can be perceived as a potential threat, danger, a challenge, and therefore the body stays in that stress response as it ultimately feels safe being in that place and possibly unsafe in being in a more rested and digested state of being. There are strategies and practices and tools that we can lean on to support and mitigate the detrimental effects of cortisol and manage our stress more effectively, whether that be the stress of modern day life or the acute stress of a trauma or an impactful experience in our life. Regular exercise supports us to balance out our cortisol, mindfulness practices, meditation, cultivating somatic awareness, a somatic understanding of our physical body. And by that, we mean connecting to the felt sensation of the body, breathing and breathwork practices and exercises. Particularly here, I would lean more into down-regulating breathwork, breathing practices that support the body and the system to down-regulate. And by that, we mean to find rest, ease, calm, rather than practices that are a bit more activating or evoking, which often leads us back into that stress, that cascade of stress hormones in the body. Any practices that support us in nervous system regulation, having adequate sleep, and healthy sleep patterns, being able to access and give yourself consistent sleep and wake time patterns. So by that meaning going to bed at the same time every day, waking up at the same time every day, helps the body into a rhythm and a cycle that it really appreciates. Having less screen time, turning off the screens when you can in the evening, not looking at the screen first thing in the morning, getting some morning sunlight in the eyes and on the skin, if that's available, or, even just if you live in a high-rise building, just popping your head out the window and just getting a few moments of the fresh light onto your face and your eyes. Spending more time outside in nature, grounding when you can, going for walks, maybe leaving all electronics at home and just having that little bit of time in nature can really support our nervous system and regulation. Maintaining a balanced, nutrient-rich and mineral-rich diet, avoiding foods that are highly processed, detrimental to our energy, foods that may be high in sugar that can interrupt our wake-sleep patterns. So all of these practices and lifestyle tools support us to help regulate cortisol levels and ultimately reduce stress in our body and reduce the stress response. So we're able to be less reactive and more responsive to life. Additionally, I believe that seeking social connection with our community, whether it be a friendship group, a group that you interact with sports or have shared hobbies with, is really powerful for us for having those bonding hormones, and being able to be around other humans just really helps us to learn how to co-regulate. Other tips that I could offer are things like setting yourself realistic goals for your day, not overloading your day, having a never-ending kind of to-do list that feels unachievable and starts a stress response in the body. Choosing the tasks to be done that day and completing them all so that you have that kind of dopamine reward in your brain and your body. Making sure you prioritize time for self-care, different practices, sports, activities, time in nature, time with friends or community that help you reduce stress and also can enhance your resilience to face those kind of more challenging moments in life. Often when we have a sport or a hobby or an activity, something outside of our day-to-day life in work or outside of our home life, we kind of broaden our ability to do new things, do challenging things, and meet new people and build resilience. So cortisol and stress hormones do serve a vital role in the body, and they support the body's response to stress. And it isn't about never being stressed in life, never having a cortisol spike, never having a moment in life where you feel activated or triggered or in that more stress response state, because that is a natural part of life. It is about learning how to regulate ourselves through that and come back into resource from those states. And actually, the health of our body and our system is kind of determined by our ability to experience stress and return back to resource and regulation more than never ever experiencing stress, because that actually just is a different kind of dysregulation in our nervous system. If we are trying to obtain a state where we are never activated, never triggered, never reactive, our nervous system is, in quotation marks, constantly regulated, we are most likely in a state of functional freeze. I will do another episode on that because that is a really important topic to talk about. Being resourced in our body is the ability to be triggered, activated, endure some kind of stress, move into that cortisol spike, that stress response, that cascade of hormones, allow the body to process that in whichever way it needs, and then find our way back to regulation in a relatively easeful way, in a relatively smooth and short time period. And what I mean by short is not being stuck in that response for days, weeks, months, years, decades even, but having the experience that may cause stress, feeling that cascade of energy and hormones and responses in the body, learning how to regulate, finding a place of resource, processing the feelings and the emotions, and finding our way back to that more centered, grounded state of being. Because when we're in that prolonged elevation of stress hormones and cortisol, it begins to have significant repercussions on our physical, mental, emotional, and mineral health. The more we are better able to understand the effects of cortisol and begin to implement those strategies and bring in those tools into our day-to-day life, the better able we are to manage stress. And that will then support us to cultivate a greater sense of ease and resource within our bodies, so that we are able to navigate those challenging moments or periods or seasons of life from a place of more grounded, resilient strength, rather than it kind of taking us and having us stuck in a state of survival for long periods of time. And this is where the journey of somatic awareness, embodied meditation, embodiment, and embodied resourcing really supports us to befriend our bodies and our nervous systems, to learn the individual triggers and things that activate us, that take us into those states of stress, to have that experience of stress, and also learn new pathways of how to navigate our way from that high stress internal environment back into a more rested and regulated place within. And this is the intention of all of my work within the somatic awareness, somatic embodiment, and embodied resourcing is really created and designed to support and guide women to learn how to cultivate that resource within, to give you the tools, the tips, the opportunities to embody all of that and to cultivate that steady, grounded strength within, to build resilience so you are better able to navigate those challenging seasons and cycles and waves of life when they come. And this is why I am inviting you to join us for our spring cohort of the Resourced Woman, which begins the 16th of May. It's a 3-week live online immersion. We have one live call a week from the 16th to the 30th of May. All calls are recorded, so if you cannot join us live, then you will have access to those. You also have access to a wealth of practices on the Resource Woman online course portal. Alongside that, there's many different practices, tools and techniques to guide you into bringing tips and tricks into your day-to-day life to cultivate embodied resource and grounded resilience and strength. The link to join us will be in the show notes of this episode. The investment to join is just £88 for the 3 live sessions. You'll also have access to a group Telegram space where you can ask any questions that rest on your heart or in your mind, and access to the online course portal for the foreseeable future. If you have any questions or this has touched you in any way, you can connect with me on Instagram. I'll link that in the show notes as well. If you know any women in your world that may benefit from receiving or listening to this episode, please do share it with them. Share on your social media, tag me, share with your communities. It really does support us to just understand what might be happening in our body in those moments of stress and how we may be better able to handle them and move through them with greater ease, strength, and resilience. I look forward to connecting with you in the future. If you're feeling the call to the Resource Woman, link is in the show notes, and I welcome you to join us. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for joining me on this journey today. If you loved this musing and sharing, I would love for you to share this episode far and wide. You can arrive into all of my offerings at rebecca-wilson.com. Links to dive deeper with me are in the episode notes. Remember, my love, you are here to be the fullest, most potent, powerful, embodied version of you. I am here to guide you into that. Hey love, I'm dropping in here to welcome you to join us in our online community membership, The Village. I created this space for women to gather, to return to themselves, to deepen the connection and the relationship with self, whilst held in a community of like-minded women walking the journey and the path of their own awakening.